Serious, people who once lacked motivation but are now successful. What changed? Just realizing that most who are successful aren't better than me. They're just doing whatever it is they are doing, as opposed to my relative inaction. Hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard. Realizing no one else has their crap together either, and if I just show up I'll be ahead of the pack. Analysis paralysis is a killer. I've never heard that term, but definitely know what you're talking about. Someone I greatly admire once said, "Motivation doesn't factor much into my life. Motivation comes and goes. If you lived by motivation you would accomplish little, or you would accomplish a wave every now and again. My life is run by discipline. Even when it's hard, even when it's easy, I dedicate myself to discipline. Don't chase the little gremlin that is motivation. It runs too fast. Slowly climb the mountain that is discipline. You owe it to yourself." I seriously attribute my success to that mindset. Thank you for sharing. Mine is a two-part answer. First, I found something I actually liked doing and not just something other people wanted me to do. Secondly, I got antidepressants and therapy. Bam. Functional human being. Now I have a bachelor's degree and working on my postgrad. I finally put the pipe and bottle down 4 years ago. As of last Wednesday I have an AA from Folsom Lake CC and am transferring to Evergreen State College in Olympia, Washington. I have my own apartment, plants and fish, a beautiful girlfriend that I'm planning on proposing to before the move, and my parents and I finally have a relationship again. It was miserable and I had thought about suicide many times, but I'm blessed to have stuck it out. Bruh, congrats and respect on this. Sounds like you turned it around. I'm happy and proud of you. Motivation finds you is actually the last thing that finds you, unless you already have it. Been through a downward spiral, incurred loss after loss, topped with an irrecoverable loss, not financial. Thought I'd hit rock bottom on several occasions, yet lastly found out that rock bottom has a basement. When you literally have nothing left, you flip a coin to see whether you're throwing the towel in or climbing out of the shithole you find yourself in. This is when motivation shows up to stay. Dang well said. I know everyone is different, but this is the type of motivation I constantly need. Any advice for a person like me who gets motivated but once I accomplish what I set out, I become easily complacent and lose all motivation until I hit rock bottom and get motivated again. It's an annoying cycle that I can't seem to snap out of. My mental health. I was severely depressed throughout primary school and most of college. Graduated high school with a 2.5 GPA and then nearly failed out of college twice. When I could find any motivation at all I performed well, but most of the time I was suicidal and just couldn't make myself care about anything. I was finally allowed to see a therapist starting around 20 years old, and by my 5th year of college I'd become a 4.0 student. Went into a very competitive graduate school a few years later and graduated top of my class while being the only student working full-time. I've excelled and been promoted in every job I've had since then. Well, that's very inspirational. This will really proves that it's never too late to be who you want to be. As someone who recently got out of a 7-year funk, here's a big thing I've learned. People are like cars. They need fuel, not just food, but also other needs, like emotional support. As we go through life, we basically are running on fumes because our parents, teachers, friends tell us we're not good enough and not deserving of emotional resources. But if we can recognize that we have needs that aren't being met, we can find ways to get those needs met. And once that emotional hunger has been sated and our tank is full, motivation comes with it. For me, I found that there were some needs I had buried deep. Uncovering them and addressing them has totally changed my life. It's only been a few days that I've been like this, and I'll probably have another slump in the future, but this was a big breakthrough for me. I taught high school for half a year and one of the students was so incredibly smart and pointed out all of my flaws on how to be a better educator. High schoolers have no filter and say whatever's on their mind, and it motivated me to do better and I decided to go for my master's. Honestly, I went to a psychiatrist and we discovered that I have bipolar disorder. Once I got on medication I was a completely different person who actually wanted to be successful. I quit. When my high school counselor told me to quit, I did. I cried. I felt lost. I felt alone. I was always told I'd never make it to college. We were too poor. Loans were something rich people could get. Nobody told me any different. Why waste my time with school? I started working full-time and I was the best employee when I showed up. It was a theme that began a journey of quitting. It was a long journey with a lot of obstacles, wasted time, parties and clubs, bars, and late nights. I met a girl though. She pushed me to try. I quit my job for a new one with an apprenticeship. I had a reason to show up. It was something I was genuinely interested in. I quit calling in sick. I quit going to bars and clubs. I quit drinking. I quit smoking. There were a lot of positive influences. People, those were the highlights. Positive people that inspired me, pushed me harder, and asked more of me than anyone else ever had. I learned what humility was. I quit trying to prove myself. I quit trying to succeed. I quit trying to be the best. I quit feeling failure. I started just looking out for others. I quit worrying about what others thought about me and started worrying about how to help others. My life took a turn for the better. I had mentors at work and a family of my own. A wife and a young daughter. I volunteered teaching school children about science, technology, engineering, and math. I went back to school, to college. I had dropped out of high school with over a year's worth of credits from advanced placement courses. My apprenticeship gave me another year of credit and an associate's. I entered an accelerated bachelor's program that had 16 hours of class every weekend for a year. 11 years after dropping out of high school, I graduated with my bachelor's. 13 years afterwards, I graduated with my master's. 16 years later, I am now halfway through my PhD. I'm on the executive board of 2 non-profits. I'm a senior civilian in the US Navy with a decade of service, and the CEO of my own consulting firm. What changed? I did. I quit being the kid who was told they'd never have a chance. I started being the man who gave others the opportunity they deserve. I found my passion. My pursuit is giving others the chance to learn and grow, showing them they have a choice. Kudos. Don't forget to give big ups to the girl, whether or not she's still in your life. Sounds like she played a part. I went on a walk to jump off a cliff, and in my way there the Bob Marley song 3 Little Birds came on, even though it wasn't in the playlist I was listening to, saying every little thing is gonna be alright, and now I look at everything from a positive point of view. I went to the doctor and asked for ADHD meds, and boom. Where I was once a lazy perfectionist that couldn't get anything done at all, turned into everything making sense, being able to break up projects into minor tasks that could be accomplished, and general happiness skyrocketed. I got married and realized that if I wanted to be a father, which I always have, I'd better go get a career. The day after our wedding I told my wife I was going to apply to law school, which I did. And now 8 years later I have a great job as an attorney. Last year we bought a house, and we have 2 kids. My motivation is still based on providing for my family. College. I was so unmotivated and lazy in high school. I still got good grades, but I didn't want to go to school. When I got to college, something just clicked and I for once actually wanted to learn and try hard. The tuition was also a good motivator. I moved upstate where a lot of my friends had been accepted to college, but I didn't have a lot of money. I lived with one of them, who had just got a place, but his girlfriend started hanging out, since they had privacy. 2 weeks later, my stuff was by the door, so I got the paper and looked at rentals. This was a while ago, and the only room I could find that was cheap was in that house. You know it. That house in the neighborhood with the broken porch and 3 cars out front that don't work, and drunks and heroin addicts coming and going at all hours. The more I stayed there and the more I saw how they lived, the more I wanted better. I was also working in a coffee shop as a waiter, with people that had been working there for years, or even decades. One day during late summer, I was heading out to work, and one of the addicts had passed out with a needle still kinda stuck in his arm. One of the 6 dogs that lived there was licking it. I stood and stared. That was before the morning shift. That afternoon, after work, I went straight to the JC and registered. I worked hard and never, ever flagged. All I had to think of was those days at that house. I ended up with a girlfriend. Love her more than anything. and when I realized my lack of motivation and action in my life made her worry, I did everything I could to change it. I am also motivated by my so, really mostly about being the kind of person they can love and rely on, and in working towards a better future life for both of us. When I was 18 I was overweight sitting on my parents' couch watching TV. A friend of my parents offered me a job in real estate development. I started working for about 2 years and saved up enough money to travel around the world. I came back after a year of traveling and now run my own property management company. What changed for me was having successful family friend. Probably not what you were looking for. I like this answer. I know a few people in your position who were basically gifted a high-paying career and they behave as if they are 100% responsible for their own success because they earned it. And if others just worked hard they could be successful like them, too. At least you recognize that you had help. Something just clicked. I weighed 190 pounds. I wasn't going anywhere in my career, and I was just overall unhealthy with my anger. For me, honesty is the best motivator. When I'm honest with myself and embrace the truth, nothing anyone else can say bothers me anymore. It sounds like shaming, but I would say out loud at work when there were cookies offered, "I can't. I'm fat." This made a lot of coworkers surprised and worry at first. Some of them laughed at the randomness of it, but it worked for me, and sometimes made the awkward "oh I can't have that one cookie won't hurt etc" just disappear. I have now lost 60 pounds. I took a lot of leadership courses and sought opportunities from upper management and am now in a temporary management position, and am healthy. Whoa, really like this. But I believe you can start telling it from a positive POV, like I am a healthy person, and a healthy person doesn't eat junk. For what it's worth, terms like motivation and discipline are so broad to be fairly useless. That's just a huge rock to lift, but if you can break them down into more specific skills, changing your behavior might be easier. For example, if I think of myself as unmotivated to finish this painting project, it can be really difficult to summon the energy to work on it. But if I narrow my issue down to the difficulty I'm having in initiating the painting process, the barrier becomes so much easier to overcome. I know that once I get started, I'll probably get into and really get some painting done. Or maybe I'm reluctant to work on it because there are a lot of steps involved and I feel a little overwhelmed. But maybe I could work on just one part of it that feels manageable, and tomorrow the whole process will feel a lot less intimidating. Just keep chipping away at it. Anyway, point being, motivation is really an umbrella term for a whole suite of traits: organization, planning, task initiation, follow through, and see. Most people have a few strong suits and a couple weaknesses, but being specific about your obstacles can make them so much easier to manage. This question is backwards for me. It's strange. I used to be so motivated, talented, had tons of money. I was also a rage addict. Now that I am 5 years sober I've lost all motivation. I am lazy, poor and hate working. I guess it was the drugs keeping me going. Whoa, I'd like to hear more about your story. I used to barely pass in high school and did horrible in school. My parents were always there to clean up my messes and brush it under the rug. Once I lived on my own and realized the only person to clean up my mess was me, I started. Now I'm a straight A honor student. Stopped hanging around my pot smoking friends as much. Stopped caring about friends and social crap in general. Pursue my own interests and career without much outside influence. Nearly went blind due to a severe case of treatment-resistant pigmentary glaucoma which ultimately required 3 surgeries to correct in my early mid-20s. I'm an American millennial. Had I not been on my parents' insurance, the whole fiasco likely would have set me up for a lifetime of debt, or I just would have gone blind. At the time we still weren't really sure if I was going to need additional surgeries in a few years, after the age of 26. When I would have automatically been booted off my parents' insurance. Got my butt in gear to get a career that would reliably offer health insurance or pay well enough that I could buy my own private plan. I feel I was lucky. First off because I had parents in a position to still have me on their insurance. But also, most people don't have their first major health crisis until later in life when it's harder to change the course of their finances career. I see this playing out in many of my friends. I am nevertheless in favor of socialized healthcare. I don't want other people to go through the terror that I did, and many go through far worse. I was a 5 feet 6, 210 pounds incoming freshman who had always got below average grades. I played football, but my football team had a loser mentality. I joined wrestling, and there I met the best community I've ever been in. There I realized that my purpose as a person, of being someone who gives themselves for a greater good for what they care about. I'm now 5 feet 9 to 10ish and 180 pounds while doing better in school. I'm now starting in football and wrestling is coming together well. TLDR. Find your purpose and give it all for said purpose. A couple years in the Air Force. Working on the flight line will either make or break you. I learned hard work and the meaning of it. Got out, moved away from everyone I know, and started a new life. I work in banking now, ended up buying a house, and showed the friends I made in the service that they too can make it on their own. As a bonus, my college is free when I want to use it thanks the post 9/11 GI Bill. Got diagnosed with ADHD, got on meds, went from a 1.8 average to a 3.4 average GPA. Started working a 45-50 hour a week job and lost 20 pounds. During a freaking pandemic. It's amazing. I always felt somewhere, deep within me, there was a type A, successful and passionate person. And I found her. And I'm keeping her. Only wish I would have done it sooner. I was dating a girl. She was the most beautiful angel that ever walked this planet. She was kind and generous and she loved me. Then she broke up with me and I was crushed. I took a look back at every argument that we had ever had and they all boiled down to money. My value as a person is directly related to my bank account. I want to have the opportunity to make her value me again. So I put in the work, found a better job, kissed butt, worked hard, started early, and stayed late. I began teaching myself new skills that I can monetize. Now in another year or two I will be completely debt free. I have all of my bills caught up. I have my car paid off. I don't know if she will ever love me again, but at least now I'm a better person. This crap is true. I also had at least one GF whose opinion of my lack of money and focus, goals, drive etc was a big factor in why she dumped me. Motivates you to keep that from happening again with the next one. I too subconsciously made sure that if I got dumped in the future it would not be because I am not successful enough. OP. Thank you for posting this, and thank you for the stories you've shared in this thread. This is something that I really needed to see. I'm in college now, but I'm doing super well mentally and academically when I used to be horrible in high school. And it's because I want to have a nice yard in my future house for my future dog. And I also want to live in a pretty place and spend the rest of my life doing what I enjoy. Growing up and becoming an adult really changed my attitude on a lot of things. I got tired of wasting time. I was embarrassed for myself and my wife that I was unemployed all the time. It really hit hard when she said she hates when people ask her what her husband does for a living and he sits at home smoking weed all the time was the only honest answer. I quit the herb, got my license back, and have been working consistently for over a year now. I feel amazing. Staying in better physical shape helps tremendously as well. I do my best not to procrastinate, which is hard with ADHD, but I have been making it work. Basically, I focused on changing the things that killed my motivation and discovered I was actually a driven individual. It feels amazing to be functional and that feeling has perpetuated me to continue. I never had a strong drive for success, but I had a strong desire for success. Even if you aren't motivated to improve, you can still improve when the opportunity presents itself. Don't be afraid to take chances, especially if you aren't out there making a lot of chances for yourself. I am a high schooler. So is my cousin. We are both super good football players. I was just cruising along through high school, but then my cousin got a couple of D1 scouts looking at him. Central Florida and a few other not too good teams, but still D1. He got a lot of attention from family. We are gonna be seniors this upcoming year. And I was like, oh heck no. I wasn't going to let him get all the attention at our family reunion. Would have happened last month. Instead we did it over Zoom. So I trained like heck. At mid-season, when all the scouts were looking at seniors, that's how my cousin caught the eyes of the recruiters. I already had some D2 and JUCO scouts taking notice. My team was already good, and it only made our road a little more smooth. We won finals for our Division 4 out of 18, and our record was 18-1. In that time I put on 23 pounds of muscle, increased my 40 by 0.23 seconds, increased my bench by 20 pounds. Needless to say, by playoffs, D1 scouts were taking notice of me, and my cousin was also getting more scouts looking at him. As we are only juniors, no offers, and the ones taking notice didn't go to see us, but happened to notice our talent. Anyway, we are both looking into Texas Christian, Berkeley, and a few others. Berkeley, you're looking at great programs. Work hard and enjoy the heck out of it. This pandemic is going to change football. Will be interesting to see how preparation and even equipment changes. In any case, check out Southern Miss and the football history of the Golden Eagles. Check out Tulane as well. Being in and around New Orleans has its perks as a college student. Hitting rock bottom. My rock bottom may not be as severe as others, but it was enough for me to want to change. Going from a skinny 130-pound female to a 200-pound chubby girl isn't fun. At one point I was eating fast food every single day. On top of that, working at a job I hate, not getting a raise, being fricked out of a leadership position over and over, not being able to save money, constantly racking up my credit cards. Still living with my parents when almost everyone else my age was moved out. I feel like I almost dug myself into a deep hole intentionally, just so I could get sick of it. I said frick this one day and slowly started fixing my life. I started eating better. Instead of going to fast food restaurants on my breaks, I went to the store and bought protein shakes and fruit. I bought a gym membership and starting working out a minimum of 3 times a week and didn't let myself skip it for any reason. I'm starting my own business in hopes I can quit my crappy job and have finally handed management enough to get me into the leadership position I deserve. Not gonna lie, still working on the money part, but I'm in significantly less debt than I was and have a decent amount in my savings. You have to get to the point sometimes where you've dug yourself so deep that you're just sick of it. I'll give you the opposite. 20 years of motivation and success, followed by 10 of zero motivation and little success. As defined by society, that is. The big difference and turning point was life happened. Innocence was lost. I learned what the game was, and realized I didn't want to play. Just wasn't worth it. While I'm technically sad for what I've lost, I'm definitely happier to have spent my time as I've spent it. The last 10 years. No use playing in a rigged system. I'd rather do the bare minimums and enjoy my limited time one life. Thanks for sharing. I feel better about having struggled with realizing this on my own. 2. Career-wise, for me it took getting into a role at a lower level and realizing that I am just as deserving and capable as the people at the top, aka no one has a clue what they are doing. It's just about how confident they are while doing it. I let that thought drive me to keep pushing and trying, and learning. In my personal life, it's been a recent realization of the reality behind the phrase "it's about the little things you do every day." I've started making those little choices and changes every day, and it's building a better, bigger picture of a future for me. It really has very little to do with the giant things you plan to do in the future and a whole lot more to do with those little things daily. I made a habit tracker. Added each thing I think is important in my life to it, then ticked off each day when I applied some time and attention to that thing. After 2+ months of making those tiny changes and efforts each day, a lot of it has become second nature and the results are astounding. Understanding that motivation is fleeting, but discipline makes things happen. Without discipline, the chances of actually completing any task that is ultimately highly rewarding are slim. Establish a goal, something you want. Reverse engineer the steps you need to take to make that goal come true. Build the discipline to grind it out. Grew up with crappy parents who either neglected me and my siblings or put us down for not being perfect enough. Poverty, food stamps. Dad dropped out in the 8th grade. I was so determined to be different I had an extreme case of perfectionism. Sounds like a good way to be successful? Not so much. If I can't be the most perfect at something, I obsessively worry, but procrastinate and avoid it. This hurt me when I ended up in community college instead of university because I needed something more affordable and had to work full time. I felt like a loser who should be smarter than that and ended up just abandoning my classes first semester. I now know how immature I was being. Eventually, I wised up and realized how many of the nurses I looked up to at work with went to that same community college. Something finally clicked that not everything had to be perfect. As long as I kept moving in the right direction towards my goals, I would finally get there. Some days when I feel like doing nothing because it feels overwhelming, I make sure I do one single thing. It seems insignificant, but every day I have the satisfaction of knowing I'm a little closer, and it makes me want to do more the next day instead of totally avoiding it. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.